The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
We are on audio only, so you're going to have to trust me on this. Or if you follow me on Twitter, at AndyPollin1, you can actually see this. I am wearing a T-shirt today that if I had worn something like this 2 years ago, it would have made for a very good April Fool's joke. It says on this red T-shirt, Indiana, national champions. Yeah, national champions, not in basketball, which they've been 5 times before, but national champions in football. And 2 years ago, they were the losingest program of all time. Since then, they've lost only 2 games, finished an undefeated season. And when you think of April Fool's jokes, that might be one of them. Indiana, national champions in football. So anything can change, you know, and that's one of those things that I never thought I would necessarily see. My son went to Indiana, loved his time there, but loved it as a basketball school. He was there when Christian Watford hit that last-second shot to beat Kentucky, and he stormed the court. And that was his athletic thrill when he was there, or fan thrill when he was there, and I don't think he ever dreamed that they would have a national championship in football, and he went to 2 of the playoff games this past season. He did not make it to the championship game in Miami, but given that he's going to have a baby in about a month and he just bought a house, I don't think that shelling out $4,000 for a ticket would have been the best thing to do. So congratulations to the Hoosiers. They are no longer an April Fool's joke. They are, in fact, the national champions in football until somebody knocks them off next year, or who knows, maybe they repeat. What Curt Cignetti has done there is absolutely amazing. The owners' meetings, I guess, are wrapping up today. I don't think there's going to be any more activity after today in Arizona. And Roger Goodell did his annual news conference from there. He does, I guess, 3 or 4 of these regular things over the course of the season. He's got the draft coming up. He did a news conference at the Super Bowl. And, you know, one of the things that he did as sort of a formality is he kind of closed down the NFL Network as an operating partner with the NFL. Now, as I understand it, the NFL Network is still going to exist, but it's going to be owned by ESPN. What that means for the programming, I'm not really sure, but it is a transition for something that the league started its own network. This was on, well, he got to a couple of things. One was the Rooney Rule. He's not getting rid of it despite pressure from the Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier, who sent a letter to Roger Goodell threatening potential civil litigation if the Rooney Rule is not eliminated. And Goodell said yesterday, one thing that doesn't change is our values. We believe that diversity has been the benefit to the National Football League. We're well aware of the laws, of where these laws are changing or evolving. We think the Rooney Rule is consistent with those. It was started, I can't believe how old this is. Rooney Rule started in 2003, so it's 23 years old. It initially required teams to interview at least one minority candidate for head coaching vacancies, but since has expanded to include general manager and coordinator positions, as well as quarterback coach. What they were finding was that there just weren't enough offensive minds getting in the cycle of interviews. And generally speaking, that wouldn't be the case here with Dan Quinn, but generally speaking, when they're hiring head coaches these days, they're hiring offensive guys. So they want, and that was the intent of the Rooney Rule anyway. It wasn't like you're required to hire these minorities. They just wanted to have more contact with the owners, get them more familiar with them. They may not get it in one hiring cycle, but somebody may remember, oh, yeah, he interviewed very well. We'd like to bring him back again. We've seen what he's done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what's happened with the Rooney Rule in those 23 years. And despite, political pressure to get rid of it, he says he's not going to do it, which is good. In 2020, the league owners approved a change that stated if a team has a minority candidate who is hired as a general manager or head coach of another team, the previous club is granted a compensatory third-round draft pick for 2 seasons. And so the Rooney Rule is staying. I guess the most interesting part of this, the news conference yesterday, was the officiating. And there is a standoff right now with the officials union, and it does appear that they are going to have replacement refs. It does not appear that this is necessarily about money. Most of the time when you have a lockout or a labor standoff, it's because of money. This seems to be more about control, and it seems to be more about, making sure that the referees have more input from the NFL. I think that's where they're going with this. And they have like this period of time where they're not supposed to have contact with them. They're not saying we want to make them full-time officials, but they want to have more ability to help them improve their skills. And this was Goodell on that yesterday in Arizona.
Listen, our number one objective is to improve officiating. We think we owe that to the game. We think we owe it to our players, coaches, and our fans. And so that's what we're focused on. We did, in the last agreement before COVID, have an opportunity to hire some officials full-time. I think it was about a dozen. We didn't see any difference in their performance by being full-time, but there are benefits to being able to work with officials. And one of the issues we have in part of our negotiations on accountability and performance is when an official is not performing at the highest level or a level that we think is acceptable at the NFL, is to be able to work with them and to train them and to give them more opportunities to get better ultimately. And we can't do that in some cases. There's a blackout period, as an example. We can't touch them until May and be able to have those opportunities. So those are the types of things that we're looking to do to try to make sure we're improving officiating and improving the performance. I've been very positive about our officials. They do an extraordinary job under extraordinary circumstances, but we can still get better. And we've been very clear about that. And we know that we can take officials who aren't performing at that level and either work with them to get better or find other officials who can do it.
So it's about control. It's not about money. On top of that, the league also approved a rule, but it would only go into effect if, in fact, they do have replacement officials this year. The eye in the sky in New York, they will be able to correct clear and obvious mistakes, like if a face mask is missed or a clear holding penalty, something like that. They will be able to correct that. And that is yet another case of the NFL getting more involved in, officiating games. And Goodell isn't backing away from that.
I do think that, we evolve, and a lot of times things have to come in steps. And rules are particularly that way. You will look to see the unintended consequences are really important. And what's going to happen when you make a rule change. We saw it with the kickoff last year. We saw the number of returns. We were able to do it safer. We made some modifications to that. That evolution is natural almost in every rule. And sometimes it takes a couple of years for those rules to take hold, either from a coaching or playing standpoint. But I think we're always going to, as good as our officials are, they're going to make mistakes. It's a fast game. And so technology is going to be critically important for us to get them right. And the more we can use that technology to correct the mistakes, the better off we are. And I think the more enjoyment our fans are going to get from the game.
Just as long as they do it quickly. I think that's all anybody asks, is they don't have these 2 and 3 minute delays while they're trying to figure out what the call is. If there's an obvious call that's missed on the field, word comes from New York, turn it, change it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. As for the possibility they can get a deal done with the referees before training camp, and again, the plan now seems to be that they're going to start training these replacement officials in May. The last time we had the lockout with the referees, they didn't start training them until July, and that's what they're blaming the awful performance on. I don't know if another couple of months of training is going to make that much difference, but that's in play as well. But Dan Graziano, who covers the league for ESPN, was on our morning show on Sportsmanlike yesterday, and this is what he says about the possibility that they could possibly get a deal done.
The league is certainly playing some hardball here. There's no question about it. Talking about hiring and training replacement officials and starting to do that as early as May 1st. because they remember 2012 and how things went so badly, and they feel like part of the reason was they didn't have enough time to get the replacement officials ready. So you have an agreement now with the NFL Referees Association that expires May 31st. So you're 2 months out from that. The league is not happy with the way those negotiations are going. They want some changes to the rules regarding how officials are trained, how much time they spend in the off season, how they're held accountable in terms of, playoff assignments, things like that. So right now it sounds really bad. And if the league is talking about training replacement officials as early as May 1st, a month from tomorrow, then it certainly seems like they're serious about moving forward with the replacement officials this time. Now, the question, of course, is it saber rattling? Is it playing hardball? Is it real? I think we can believe it's real. The question is, what does the NFL Referees Association? What do the officials do about it? Do they? Is it something that prompts them to come to the table and negotiate on a level that they haven't yet? With 2 months left in the agreement, I would say that the official side thinks there's probably time, but the league is sending out strong signals that they disagree and that this thing needs to get wrapped up pretty quickly. So I guess owners will wrap up here today. I think if you don't see news on progress in this in the next couple of weeks, I think you can start to imagine that they'll get the replacement officials ready and continue to dig in.
It does have an air of inevitability right now. That's the way it feels. It feels like the owners are the hell with it, and it's not even, again, if it's about money, then you exchange figures. This is not that. This is more about control, as I see it. That's the way I'm reading this, and that the league is saying to the officials, we can't have this dead period. If we need to train you during these couple of months, we're going to do that. And also because this is only going to be in effect if we have replacement officials, this ability in New York to overturn calls, which I think every fan wants to see. What's the frustration level for you when you see a call and then you're told, oh, yeah, that's not reviewable? Well, everything should be reviewable. Everything should, as long as they can get this done quickly. That's the big thing. They have been watching the baseball with the ABS. That's been great. They get that done instantly. It's like tennis. And tennis changed completely when they had the Quest Tech. That really was as big a factor in the change in tennis as anything. John McEnroe doesn't act like John McEnroe today because there's no way to do that. You have the reviewable part of it. Doesn't chalk flew up, ripping the umpires. That is out the window. So, the way technology is going, I would think that we're heading to an era where it's going to be more and more called by the eye in the sky, by New York. AI may have something to do with how things change. I don't know exactly what the effect would be, but we got to have it. And what we've had with these referees, we had a lot of criticism, especially last year. People very unhappy with the referees' performances. And I don't know if you ever get it right. And unlike baseball, where theoretically you could have ABS call every ball and strike, I would not be surprised if that happens within 10 years. Football, you really can't do that. There are just too many moving parts. There's 22 players on the field at one time. There's just too much that you have to watch. I don't think that would work out too well. But we're going in the direction of that. We are going to we're going to see, I think, a lot more input from technology than we've seen in the past, and it makes a lot of sense. A little bit later on, we'll talk about some of the possibilities of deals. There still is a Brandon Aiyuk possibility coming up that he could wind up here, and if they can get him in here with Terry McLaurin, that is going to give them a wide receiving duo that they haven't had in a long time. Now you could say he was a pain in the tuchus in San Francisco, and maybe he's the Devo guy, but I think he could fit in here very well. At 28 years of age, he's got a lot left, And you could say, well, he acted like a jackass in San Francisco. Yes, he did. But that doesn't mean he necessarily would do that here. So I'd kind of like to see that. All right, coming up, we'll hear about the Aiyuk situation from an insider with the 49ers. Also, speaking of the 49ers, they are going to start the season in Australia. And Kyle Shanahan, their coach, is not happy about it. That's next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Well, one thing the NFL is intent on doing is making the game as international as it can. They maybe feel like they've been close to maxed out here in the United States, so they are playing games overseas all the time. And the season will start for the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams, a quick flight between each city on the West Coast with a 16-hour flight to Australia. The season will start in Australia, and they have actually had to move the opening game, which is usually played on a Thursday, to a Wednesday because of the time change. We're not really sure whether it's Thursday or Friday in Australia, and it can't be Friday because this has to do with a 1961 broadcast rule, which protects high schools. So if the game in Australia was on a Friday, then that would violate the broadcasting agreement between the NFL and the networks that they would not, televise games on Friday night if the high school season is being played. So there's all that, and on top of that, this is really a schlep. This isn't like London. This is Australia. This is a long way to go, and good for Kyle Shanahan, 49ers coach, for being honest about his feelings.
I was so fired up. That was our goal, to go 19 hours away to play a game. So I think if we're going back in time or into the future. I think we gain a day or lose a day. I'm not sure which one yet, but it is what it is. We'll deal with it. And I think there's 8 international games. We got 2 of them, so we're fired up about that.
Were you expecting to get 2 of them? Like, how does that work? Like, do you have to negotiate or anything? Or?
No, they tell you and you deal with it.
Yeah, that's right. What are you going to do about it? Tell them we're forfeiting, we're not showing up. Tony Kornheiser and Pablo Torre was in for Wilbon yesterday. They took a look at this story and what Shanahan had said about it.
49ers coach Kyle Shanahan does not want to go to Australia for this game or any game. Yesterday, Shanahan was asked if he saw positives here, and he said, quote, "I don't see any pro. It's cool for the league to play globally, but as far as the team doing it, no. There's not much benefit," unquote. The Niners will not get a bye week after the Australia game, and the flight to Melbourne is 16 hours each way. Pablo, do the positives outweigh the negatives for the NFL?
No, they don't. And the NFL, it's funny to frame it around wants, as Kyle Shanahan was doing, because the NFL, we're in the wants business now. The NFL doesn't need to see the planet as this risk board to conquer, but they do. Apparently, Australia is on that list, and that's confusing to me because Australia is about as far away from the United States as you can get. It's not a big market. It's like smaller than Texas. And also, I don't really see how you could plausibly keep doing this because it's a 15-hour flight. But the NFL wants to build another market because they just want it. Yep. And do they need it? Absolutely not.
I will say the one good thing for this game, theoretically, when you look at it, is it's a division game. So 2 teams in the same division have to bear this, and they're very good teams, and they are incumbent playoff teams. The bad news is they're in the same division as Seattle, the Super Bowl winner. And I don't know if there's how large the disadvantage is for 32 hours in the air when you're not making Seattle do it. I understand what the NFL is doing. I understand the idea of a global footprint. I understand why they would want to be in Australia. If I owned the 49ers, I want my team to be worth more. So, yeah, I'm in favor of global stuff. I understand why they're going. They're closest to it in proximity. That's why East Coast teams go to London games. But if I'm the coach of the 49ers, Pablo, I don't want this. This is 32 hours in the air is going to affect me this game, the next game, and the game after. Yes. And if I'm the coach of the 49ers, I don't care how many Christian McCaffrey jerseys I sell in Melbourne or Sydney. I don't care about that. So I don't want this game. I don't.
Yeah, Tony, I'm very aware that you don't want this as a hypothetical NFL coach. I also know even more acutely that you don't want this as you. Can you imagine getting on a plane, you personally, for 16 hours direct? That's the shortest thing you got?
It's too long. Hey, I'll tell you another thing that's interesting. that Kyle Shanahan mentioned that they're also playing in Mexico City this coming season. Well, that flight, I mean, the subtext of that is, look what you're doing us. You're killing us. You're making us do all these games. That flight's 4 hours and 15 minutes. They also play at the Giants in New Jersey. That's over 5 hours. So, and nobody's going to say, let's cancel a game with the Giants, because the Giants stink. You'd play them in Mexico City or anywhere if you could.
Yeah. Now, this is all part of the branding of the league. It's all part of like what happens on Christmas when they put the games on Netflix and they get the numbers worldwide. And that's what they're after. You know, you keep knocking down the barriers. The NBA has done a really good job with this. The NBA is going to have NBA Europe before long. The NFL would probably like to work towards that so that their product is available worldwide. It's just like franchising a restaurant. You got a good restaurant? Put it in other places. If it's really good, you spread it out worldwide or at least nationwide. That's where the league is going, and you can't stop that. And they use the players to, put them wherever they want, and it doesn't really matter about the rest and the travel and all that. All that it's sailed years ago. I think, for me anyway, the real chutzpah move on this was not this past Christmas, but the one before, where they played on a Wednesday. And the league went, yeah, there's some really good TV numbers there. We're not going to give that to the NBA. We're going to take that. Well, sir, I guess as people call him sir too. Well, sir, what about Wednesday? That's not enough rest for the players. We'll back it up. We'll have all those teams play on Saturday, so they'll have similar rest for if it was a Thursday game. That's what they're doing. They're using the players as props, and the players are going along with it because it means more money, just like the 18-game schedule. The 18-game schedule, players say they don't want it, but there's a number that will make them want it, just like the 17 games. It's, we'll never accept 17 games. $1 billion? Okay, we'll accept 17 games. That's pretty much the way things are heading. With all of that. As for more on the 49ers and the Brandon Aiyuk situation, Aiyuk is under contract to the 49ers, but he has cost himself a lot of money in workout bonuses and rehab bonuses and things like that. So it's kind of a standoff right now, and it does appear that his days as the 49ers are over with, but the owner of the team, Jed York, said the other day about second chances. He said he got hurt after he got paid. I hope he gets back healthy. Our job is to build a culture, and our job is to make sure we bring talent into the building. I'd love to be able to bring him back on the field, and if not, I think he's a valuable asset that other people would want, and we're going to make sure that we get value and bring talent into our building. I think anything's possible. We want to make sure that we have as talented a roster as possible. First and foremost, he needs to get healthy and be able to perform. I think once that happens, he's a really good football player. I don't think it helps your trade leverage. I just think he's a good football player. I think we paid him millions of dollars in snaps, and he's I'd like to see him play for us. We paid him for a reason. I think he's a really good football player. And he's, Jed York is acting like, this is fixable. We can get him back. We'll see. Matt Mayorko is an insider for the 49ers. He does a podcast on that. He was on the Rich Eisen show yesterday, and he doesn't see it as rosy as Jed York does about the possibility that Aiyuk comes back and plays in San Francisco.
I think his comments probably caught John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan a little bit off guard. The Brandon Aiyuk 49ers union, it came to an end. It was building, and then last year, they, in the middle of December, they placed him on the reserve left squad list. So if they couldn't get him to come to the team last year when he was at risk of basically voiding a $27 million guarantee for this year, I don't think that there's any chance of that union staying together. Now, from Jed York's standpoint, the 49ers do have him under contract, and they don't want to just cut him free and let him go wherever he wants to go to a team that wants him. They want to be able to get something for him. So the best way of doing that would probably be for the owner of the 49ers to put the word out that, we're just fine keeping him here. So if some team wants him, if you want him now, come get him now. The 49ers aren't in any hurry whatsoever to get rid of him and just allow him to control his own path. So I think that was probably the message that Jed York was sending to the 31 other teams, that if you're interested at all, you'd have to really wait a long time for him. So if you want him, come get him now and give the 49ers something in return.
Why is this difference so irreconcilable?
I have no idea, and I don't even think the 49ers really have an idea. I think the only one who can really answer that is Brandon Aiyuk. You know, the contract negotiations for that deal that he signed before the 2024 season, it did get contentious, but usually when something like that happens, you know, through a contentious negotiation, once the deal is signed, it's basically both sides kind of kiss and make up and they move on. And for Brandon Aiyuk, it was a rocky offseason that year during the contract negotiations. He finally signed the deal, and then he wasn't productive when he got on the field. He missed all the training camp and all the offseason program. And right around the time where it started to look like, you know, he might be playing the kind of football that the 49ers signed up for, that's when he got injured. And then, you know, the rehab kind of went sideways with him not fulfilling the terms of the contract to show up and be under team supervision. So it's kind of a tough one to put your finger on. And, you know, I think even his close friends on the team weren't at all sure, you know, what was going on, what the impetus was for him to have such a fractured relationship with the 49ers. I think generally speaking, you know, when you have a guy like John Lynch who knows what it's like to be an NFL player, he knows how players want to be treated. He's a Hall of Famer. They've tried to do all the right things as far as just, you know, treating these guys with respect and dignity, but something became amiss with the whole Brandon Aiyuk situation. I don't think anybody really knows what happened.
So in your reporting or in the conversations, what do you think would be the acceptable compensation from another team for the Niners to basically say this ends now?
I mean, I would think just something. You know, I don't think that.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I think it you know, a 7th round draft pick.
Really?
To me,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I don't know that any team, based on how last year went, would be willing to pay more than that. And for the 49ers, I think they just want something in return. They did sign him to the contract. You know, Jed York said, I guess kind of tongue in cheek a little bit, that they paid him more millions of dollars than actual snaps that he played once he signed that contract. So, you know, that's an exaggeration, but it kind of points to, you know, where the team felt about, you know, not getting any bang for their buck. Now they are able to get out of that contract. No more guaranteed money left on the deal. That was money voided and that Brandon Aiyuk did not fight. There was no grievance filed or anything of that nature. But I just think at this point, it's just anything that they can get for him would be a plus, because I don't see him being on the team. I don't think there's any chance of him being on the team. And so, you know, at some point they'll be prepared to cut ties with him, and then he can go seek another team. So I honestly think anything they get for him at this point would be a bonus.
That's Matt Mayorko, 49ers insider. So if it's a 7th round pick for Aiyuk, I think you do it. And I think, you know, Adam Peters is just waiting for the right opportunity. He's a guy that he drafted in San Francisco, so he's got familiarity with him. And he also played at Arizona State with Jaden Daniels. So it seems like the door is swinging wide open to get him. What happens over the next couple of months, weeks, we'll have to see. Next up is the draft. I don't think they're going to be drafting a wide receiver, so I think that's very much in play. Saw this, and I'm kind of puzzled by it. Jason Kelsey, who is working for ESPN, and I think he does a good job on the Monday Night Countdown show that Scott Van Pelt does, but apparently he got a contract which included things that he's just not good at. And they tried a late night show that he did with his wife, and it was terrible. I think they did like 5 episodes. It was awful. I don't think that's going to be brought back. And so they are sending him to the Masters for their coverage of the par 3, which is a week from today in Augusta. The thing I wonder about this, he's not a golfer. He's not a golf guy. He's not they're not Barstool, but he and his brother, they go over the top sometimes. Do they not remember Gary McCord in 1994, a former golfer working for CBS, who lost his job covering the Masters because he says, I don't think they mow these greens. I think they bikini wax them. And the people at Augusta said, that can't go. So he was out. I wonder about Kelsey as an on-course reporter. Probably he's been coached up. This is a very staid place. Don't do anything that's going to anger anybody on that. But it does appear that other than NFL coverage, he doesn't really have a great place at the network, which is what they do. They tend to overexpose people, and I think that Kelsey is another example of that. Good at what he does on the Monday Night Countdown show, no question about that. But clearly, they're trying to find something for him, and I just wonder about exposing him to the Masters, where they have the people at Augusta have a lot of say over the broadcast, and if they don't like something, they get rid of you. That's not to say he would lose his job at ESPN, but I don't know if that's something that they want to a road that they want to go down. Coming up, Mad Dog Russo with a story that you'll like. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Sorry, got a little trigger happy there. We talked about the referee situation in the NFL, that we're going down this road quickly of replacement refs. And it does not appear to be about money. It's about control. And the NFL wants more control in this situation. They want to have the referees more engaged in a bigger part of the calendar. And I think this is what's going to happen. They also have come up with a one-year rule for the upcoming season where they will allow the replay center to correct clear and obvious mistakes made by on-field officials that impact the game. This in case there's a work stoppage. So that's a backstop for these replacement refs. If it's that bad, they'll be able to correct it in New York. And then you got this story that's floating around here. There's a woman who was a referee who's been fired, and she has filed a lawsuit citing open hostility while she was on the job. Robin DiLorenzo cited gender-based scrutiny, humiliation, and open hostility among the indignities she suffered from 2022 to 2025. The lawsuit in Manhattan federal court filed Friday sought reinstatement along with unspecified damages. NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy said in an email that DiLorenzo was terminated after 3 seasons of documented underperformance. However, the lawsuit says that the NFL crew chief told then Pittsburgh Steelers coach Mike Tomlin one day during training camp that she should be made to sing in front of everyone like rookie football players because she was a new official. As a result, she put on an utterly humiliating singing performance in front of Steeler players, all the men on her officiating crew and her boss, who said that they were promised not to record her but did so anyway, according to the lawsuit. I've never heard of referees having to do this. It's long, been a tradition for players that they do this. Never heard of referees. And then she said she was subjected to profanity-laced trash talk by her crew chief, a man who recently been accused of mistreating another female employee, the lawsuit said. By the end of the season, the crew chief would not even speak to her, it added. 2024, she was forced to attend an alleged training opportunity over the union's objection that catered to lower-level college officials learning the trade, something no male official has ever been required to do. She was fired in February of 2025, just over a year ago. So be interested to see where that goes. Chris Mad Dog Russo, one of the real pioneers of this business. He and Mike Francesa did the Mike and the Mad Dog show for almost 20 years, and that was the gold standard for sports talk radio. I don't think it could happen today because there's just too many different outlets. But you would wait until 1 o'clock in the afternoon to get reaction from the night before to games from those two guys. They set the standard. And one of the things that makes you successful in the talk show field is not that you have a great story, it's that you can tell a great story well. And that's one of his talents. Now, if you were to step back say, whoa, what is it with this guy? He gesticulates. He's jumpy. He has a little bit of a speech impediment. What makes this guy work? It works because he knows how to tell a story, and that's the real difference between really good talk show hosts and just run-of-the-mill ones. And program directors are always looking to hire comedians. Comedians don't work at this, because you have to be sort of a wise guy and you have to be able to tell things off the cuff. Comedians tell stories, that's true, but they're uber rehearsed. It's all part of a routine that they do, 12 minutes or so. It's not a 3-hour talk show. And Mad Dog Russo, he's been on Sirius XM for 20 years. I think so, close to that. He was telling a story yesterday. He's a big history buff. He's telling a story about Grant and Lincoln from a book that he read. And if you listen to the cadence and the way he tells the story, that gives you a real sense of why he is as successful as he is. So this is a story I'd not heard before. It's got a really good payoff. It's about the night that Lincoln was assassinated, which happened, I believe, April 15th, right? Yeah, April 15th is like the worst day of the year. The Titanic sinking, Lincoln assassination, of course, it's tax day. But this was Russo off a book he read about General Grant, Ulysses S. Grant, and what happened the night that Lincoln was assassinated.
Lincoln, in 1865 in April, when he went to the Ford Theater that night to see the play, he invited the Grants to go with him. Ulysses and his wife, I think her name was Julia. He asked the Grants, begged them. You know, the war was over. Appomattox, I think I pronounced it right. Appomattox, that's correct. Happened, a couple weeks before that with Robert E. Lee. And he asked Lee, please, I'm going to the theater tonight. It was Good Friday. Me and Mrs. Lincoln, could you please join us? And Grant wanted to go in the worst way. His wife couldn't deal with Mary Lincoln. Wanted nothing to do with her. Ulysses, I can't do this. I can't put up with her. She's going to drive me nuts. So she refused to go. So Grant said, Mr. President, I can't go. If Grant went, he was going to bring his military entourage, meaning protection, meaning there's no way John Wilkes Booth gets into that Ford gun. Lincoln's alive.
That's so well told. That's just, and it has like a sports feel to it. The what if part. Like if he doesn't throw the interception, and just listen to the pacing of it. That's really what you get to. And I'll tell you, I saw the Grant series on the History Channel, and this was really eye-opening for me. I'd not heard that story about the possibility that he would have been there the night that John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln. Now, who's to say, because you don't expect that to be coming, is the military detail going to be sitting in the box with Grant? Would those people have reacted quickly enough to get John Wilkes Booth? They might have. And Secret Service wasn't the same then that it is now. But the stories that I heard about from this series on the History Channel about Grant were incredible. Now, Grant was an alcoholic. People know that. He died of lung cancer. He smoked cigars incessantly. And people said that he was not a good general, not a good president. Not true. Not true at all, according to this series. And they said the reason that he got this reputation was after his death, that the writing of history was done by Southern sympathists. It was done by people who had wanted the South to win in the Civil War. And if you look at the record, Grant was a military genius, and it was his strategy that helped to win the Civil War for the northern states. And also, he was a very good president, it said, and had 2 terms, and prior to term limits, which we have had after the Roosevelt, when he won 4 times. He almost won a 3rd time, and that's kind of the rewriting of history that you hope doesn't happen with the era that we're in now, as there were attempts to do this. But that's what happened with that people who were Southern sympathists became biographers for people like Grant, and that wasn't him at all. And, had he been there that night and had his military detail been there, who knows? But the fact that Mrs. Grant didn't like Mrs. Lincoln. Now, as I understand it, from what I read, Mary Todd Lincoln had a lot of depression issues, even prior to the terrible tragedies that she had with the assassination of her husband. I think 2 of their kids died very young, and it was common then that kids did not survive and families were bigger. But, the fact that the 2 women couldn't get along changes the course of history, right? Maybe. Again, maybe. But just the way Russo tells the story is just tremendous. I took typing twice when I was in high school. And the reason I took it twice was I took it in the 10th grade figuring, well, you get to high school, you got to type your papers. Really didn't have to do that. But I knew that going to college, I was going to have to type papers. So it was important for me to improve my typing skills. The semester that I had as a sophomore was not sufficient enough to give me the typing skills that I needed. So I took it again. I don't even think they teach typing anymore. I don't think so. I think people instinctively know how to type, or because there's the keyboards for everything. Now, I don't, you learn, I guess more people type with 2 fingers now. I don't really know. But I'm old enough to have worked with typewriters. My graduation present from high school was, in fact, an electric typewriter, which I used in college and used in my first job. But there is a professor at Cornell University, Grit Matthias Phelps, a German language instructor who introduces her students to the raw feeling of typing without online assistance. No screens, online dictionaries, spell checkers, or delete keys. And one of the things that you would try to perfect while you were typing was the accuracy, that you didn't want to make mistakes, because correcting mistakes was a lot different then than it is now. It's incredibly different. And in fact, if it was really an important document, you'd have to retype the whole thing. If it was something that was not as important, you used something that was called liquid paper. And liquid paper was, in fact, invented by Mike Nesmith's mother, Mike Nesmith of the Monkees. And that was something that you, painted on over a mistake and then would type over the letter. And, as we evolved from typewriters into word processors in the 80s and now to laptops and all the different ways that we use typing now to type out our thoughts and work, it was incredibly different during the typing era, and she wanted to give her students a sense of this. It started 3 years ago. She grew frustrated with the reality that students were using AI and online translation platforms to churn out grammatically perfect assignments. She said, what's the point of that? She wanted her students to understand what writing, thinking, and classrooms were like before everything turned digital. She found a few dozen old manual typewriters in thrift shops and online marketplaces and created what her syllabus calls an analog assignment. That's such a cool idea. One of the kids, a freshman, Catherine Mong, said, I was so confused. I had no idea what was happening. I'd seen typewriters in movies, but they don't tell you how a typewriter works. It's not, I didn't know there was a whole science to using a typewriter. Well, there's not science. You just type. She explained that the dinging bell signifies the end of a line, that you then manually need to return the carriage to start the next line. Oh, one student said, that's why it's called return. Yeah, right. I guess you wouldn't think about that. Let's see, I'm looking at a keyboard now from the computer in front of me. It does not have return. It has enter. So, yeah, that's why you would have return on a typewriter, a manual typewriter on top of that. In the absence of screens, there are no notifications to distract you as you write. Without every answer readily available at the fingertips, a student asked the classmates for help, and she encouraged that. Without a delete key and the ability to correct every mistake, he paused to think more intentionally about writing. Yeah, that's something that you do. Yeah, I do a lot of writing, and sometimes I'll knock out whole paragraphs or sentences, and you can do that. Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. If I were a teacher, I would think about doing that too. I noticed something the other day, there was I watched it on Netflix. This is a terrific feature, short film, whatever they call it. It won an Academy Award. Steve Hartman, who does great stories for CBS, produced a movie called All the Empty Rooms, and where he visited families of kids who died in school shootings. And it's 35 minutes. It's worth your time. It's incredibly moving. But the point I would make about the writing, which I hadn't thought of, and I think I'm going to start to do this myself. When he goes to write, he puts Post-it notes of things that he wants to say in what he's writing in front of him, so he doesn't forget to use those things in there. That is such a good idea, such a smart idea, and he's really terrific at what he does. And he said about this feature about the empty rooms is, for many years he felt like his role was to provide the silver lining from these school shootings. Yes, they happen, but blah, 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 and life goes on. And he said, I'm not doing that anymore. This is, and what you found was that families kept the rooms intact. They were afraid to move anything, and it reminded them of the person that they had. I mean, it's an unspeakable tragedy. You send your kid to school in the morning perfectly fine, and he or she doesn't come home because he was shot. And the ability of Steve Hartman to tell a story with empathy and compassion is just incredible. And I would highly recommend this documentary, All the Empty Rooms. But the point about typing and thinking out your thoughts and not just, slamming out words, that's really a good idea. I think she came up with something very, very good there. All right, coming up in the next hour, Tiger Woods says he's going to get help. We'll talk about that. And also, it was 30 years ago today that John McSherry, the umpire, collapsed and died, and what the awful Marge Schott said about it. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Can you believe it'll be a quarter of a century a year from now when we celebrate Maryland's basketball championship? 2002. Seems like yesterday to me. After all those years of frustration watching Maryland basketball not getting in the tournament in 1974 when they were one of the best teams in the country, which forced them to expand the tournament. Some years where they had a chance to win it, even the year before, where they were up 22 against Duke in the semifinals, and they wound up losing. And Johnny Holiday's The Kids Have Done It was 24 years ago today. Maybe even as amazing. Johnny Holiday, who's in his 80s, is still doing the games. And 24 years ago today was quite a night, and that was a wonderful thing to watch Maryland with the national championship. This has not been wonderful. Watching once again Tiger Woods arrested. I spent 8 hours in jail. Fortunately, no one injured, including himself. But this driving under the influence case in Florida last Friday, yesterday he pleaded not guilty, but he said that he is now going to get help to seek treatment. He says this is necessary in order for me to prioritize my well-being and work towards lasting recovery. You hope it works this time. We've kind of heard this before. He needs some help. He needs people to be straight with him. Alan Shipnuck, who has covered golf for many years, he was on CNN over the weekend, and he looked at this situation and said, things around Tiger really have to change before things get better.
It's almost a decade now. I mean, Tiger had his first DUI in 2017, and he had a cocktail of pills in his system. And then, of course, he had the rollover. That was kind of swept under the rug by the LA County Sheriff. They did not investigate that thoroughly. We don't know exactly what happened with that accident and what Tiger may or may not have been impaired by, but clearly he should not be behind the wheel. I mean, he's endangering himself and others. And, he broke his body in this maniacal pursuit to be the greatest golfer of all time. And he smashed up his life as well. And it's just sad to see the price that he's paid. And You have to hope that this will be the wake-up call that Tiger needs. But for this now, 3 strikes and you're out. I think everyone in the game would like to see him drive nothing more than a golf cart for the rest of his life.
I mean, you've reported on him for so long, you know his inner circle, and you've said a lot of people in his inner circle are on his payroll, right? I mean, is there anybody who can sort of turn to Tiger and say, dude, you've got a problem, let's get you some help?
It may have to be his children. Charlie's now a senior in high school. Sam is off at college. They may be old enough now to take on that burden. There was one person who could speak, truth to power to Tiger, and that was his father, Earl. And he died in 2006, and Tiger's been on this downward spiral ever since. And there's clearly a vacuum of people around Tiger that care about him enough to tell him the hard truths. And so it may fall upon his children, and I would think that's who will finally get through to him if anybody can. But he's surrounded by enablers and yes men and employees, and they're just not going to tell him what he needs to hear.
Yeah, I would think, and that's Alan Shipnug, I would think he needs to stop being Tiger Woods. Let's stop talking about playing, get away from that, get a more normal life, and stop driving. Don't drive a car. That's a pretty obvious thing. Because this is just getting to the point where it's inevitable that he's going to hurt himself and probably somebody else. This is just a terrible circumstance that he faces, and if he's going to be able to get out of it, he's got to be the one to do it, because as Shipdunk said, he's surrounded by too many enablers. Some interesting fallout on this one. Ian Eagle's call with Bill Raftery and Grant Hill of the game-winning basket for Duke, for Connecticut on Sunday at Capital One Arena. Braylon Mullins and the shot. It's not just the audio that has gone viral; it's the video, and you see the reaction from Raftery. You see the reaction from Grant Hill. You do not see Ian Eagle, and the reason you don't, I will get to, but this was the call on Sunday at Capital One.
Caravan, 2 seconds. Mullins tosses it up. It's good! We're point 3! UConn goes in front! Utterly impossible! March means drama! The deflection, the reaction, and then the major Nuggets out of Indiana. They all can shoot. Nylon from deep. Astounding. The freshman, Braylon Mullins. What a play. All Duke had to do was hold the ball there. Absolutely. They didn't need to get rid of it. No backcourt violation, nothing.
Yeah, now, Eagle did an interview with SI.com, and some of the responses are very, very telling here. He said, how did the fact that there were 0.3 seconds left, later changed to 0.4 seconds, instead of it being a buzzer beater, affect your call? And Eagle said, well, I've done a lot of games in my career, so I'm hyper aware of the clock. I probably made a mistake early in my Nets broadcast career, calling something for the win only to see tenths of a second remaining on the clock, and it bugged me. I think Eagle was a student at Syracuse when Keith Smart hit that shot from Indiana to beat them. There were 4 full seconds left on the clock, and Syracuse finally got a timeout with 1 second to go. Nowadays, they would have checked when the ball went through the basket. There might have even been 4.5 to 5 seconds left on the clock at that point. Then this question, what are the challenges that go into calling a wild ending like that when you also have to get 2 analysts involved? You think a 3-man booth is easy. It's not. And Eagle said, when it gets frenetic, my main objective is to just make sure what you're saying is correct. You have to quickly shift because the mentality initially is they're going to foul. This is going to be a free throw shooting contest, and odds are you will exhale and get a chance to reset. Once you realize that, no, that's not happening, you quickly have to move into a different gear, which is to stay on top of what's happening in real time, and whatever comes out of your mouth comes out of your mouth. He says there's no planning, there's no way of predicting just where you're going to go, but I think leaning on experience in the fundamentals now come into play. This question, where does that shot, game, moment stand in your career? He said, I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime sequence because it's not just the shot. It's everything that led up to the shot. That's what made it feel so miraculous. We've seen big shots and big moments, but it's rare when you get that kind of play. Bang, bang, defense to offense so suddenly. And it's where I think emotion shifts and you're just trying to mirror what others are feeling and maintain control to be accurate. Then this is the part that I found to be the most interesting. The video of your crew went viral. We can only hope to, we only see you in for a snippet. What is going on there? He says, the crazy part about it is, I don't remember the exact timing, but it was fairly late in the second half. A ball bounced towards the out of bounds, and it banged into the camera that's mounted for the point of view, overhead for the announcers. And it shifted the camera over, so it primarily was on Raftery and Grant, and I was out of the frame. They weren't aware of all that. We don't get the feed, so they couldn't actually see themselves, while they were doing this. But the reason we don't see Eagle is the ball hit the camera, knocked it a little bit out of the way. He says, so if the ball doesn't hit the camera, you're in the video? Yeah. He says, are you bummed you're not as viral as Raftery and Hill? No, I'm not. I thought it was perfect for exactly what happened. I think the state of shock that people were feeling, it was illustrated by Raf and Grant's very genuine and organic reaction. So, yeah. That was that's a shining moment. That's a one shining moment for the broadcaster, and the combination of things here, what was, the way the game was unfolding, the fact that it was UConn, a team that had won 2 previous national championships with a frenetic coach, the fact that it was Duke, because Duke usually does this to the other team, and the way it all turned on that, pretty amazing. Another interesting thing regarding media, and this was from a recent podcast that was done. It's called The Old Man and the Three, Cam Johnson, who plays for Denver. He had Brian Windhorst on, and Brian Windhorst has been covering the NBA since 2003. And he talked about the big change that has happened in media since he started covering. Obviously, social media is one thing. When he started covering the NBA in 2003, we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have the social media that we have now. The other thing he says is the way the access has been set up for the players.
The biggest difference between now and then is the architecture that has been constructed. When I say architecture, back in those days, when it comes to players in media were pretty much in the same space every single day. The practice courts, like Denver is an example. Denver's got an old school practice court, Cam. Like, think about how different Denver's practice court is from your situation that you had in Phoenix, where you had a brand new court, or Brooklyn, brand new. Like, literally buildings are constructed now to separate the players from the media. And that's done out of protection of the players. Because sometimes they need to be protected from the media, but there's a distance that's built up. What I mean by that is, when I first came in the league, when you went to the practice gym, and practice is an important place where you have relationships with media, practices and like on the road locker rooms, there would be one door in and one door out to the gym. Like there was some gym on like the 4th floor somewhere or in the basement somewhere, and there was one door in and one door out, and the media the players would be in the same space every day. And if you were angry at a media member, which happened to me, and you wanted to MF them, you could just MF them, but you'd had to do it face to face. And as a result, the media and the people who covered them were face to face, like if not every day, like 5 days a week. And now they build these practice facilities where literally the media comes in like in a different entrance like from the main road. Forget about like in the building, like you don't even come in the same driveway, and they, and so it's very simple to like create the 2 tunnels, and they're literally separated. And so it breaks down relationships. And so, but again, I'm not even necessarily arguing that hasn't had some benefit. It was designed that way for reasons, largely to protect players. But that breakdown is really the biggest difference from the last 2 decades.
Yeah, well, I know that guys who covered the NBA, like back in the 70s, they not only had access to these guys, they sometimes practiced with them. David Dupree, who was a terrific NBA writer, wrote for the Post for many years and then went to USA Today, was a former all Pac-10, or maybe he was even Pac-8 then, safety at the University of Washington. He was a real athlete. And he could hold his own on the basketball court. And he would, not only cover the team, but if they needed somebody else for practice, he would do that. And that has been a real change in the way that the league has been covered. I think, too, the economic differences between media and players is enormous. And players made good money. There's no question about that. And superstars made ridiculous money for that time, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That was a lot of money. But I just keep going back to what Kevin Greavy told me. Kevin was a first-round draft pick by the Bullets in 1975. And I believe he got paid like $75,000, which was a lot of money in those days. You could live well like that. But he lived in an apartment complex in Greenbelt, and he said he was jealous of the police officers that lived there because they had a pension, And he said the NBA had no pension. You was just a different thing. So it was more relatable, media and players. Not that way anymore. You used to be able to go in and have a conversation with a player. Now everything is done in a press conference. And here's Windhorst, who is part of new media. Let's be clear on that. We didn't have the Brian Windhorst of the world back in the day, having an NBA reporter who worked for a national network. We didn't have that back in the 70s. ESPN started in 1979, and they didn't really have these type of reporters. But you see the way that the world has changed and the way that broadcasting has changed dramatically through all of that. And Windhorst really is interesting where he says that it's a separation. You have a separate entrance for reporters. You don't have the chumminess that you would get, and that's where stories spill out. That's where you get those kind of nuggets along the way. All right, I'm really tired today, so hopefully I get some sleep tonight and come back with a little more energy tomorrow. Thank you for bearing with me, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.